What's good, everyone? This is Dr. Nee Darko. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so that you're always up to date on the new uploads as well as alerts on this show. The other thing that you can do to help build this community is make sure you leave a comment below. Let us know what you like, what you don't like about the show, and ultimately, let us know who's winning these arguments, because I need to know that I'm beating Renee in these debates. Run the tape. What's good, everyone? It is Dr. Nee. I am solo, Fadolo. That's right, it's just me. Dr. Renee can't make it on this episode. So I figured, or at least my team figured, that why don't I create an episode where I'm giving you guys an opportunity. I'm talking about the things that are going on with the Darkos, with Docs Outside the Box. Since, we've just been talking about so many different things, including locums, including traveling to Ghana and doing medical mission work, as well as telling the stories of just, doctors who are doing extraordinary things outside of medicine that a lot of times we forget to, keep you guys updated with what's going on with us. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on. There's a lot that, I'll be really honest with you, I'm really scared about. And why don't we just jump right into it? We have finally decided to purchase a home, as you can see in the bottom ticker below. We've been renting here in New Jersey for close to about 5 years now. We spent 1 year renting at one property. They sold that property. And now, we're 4 years into another home that we're renting. And it's been a great situation to rent. The way how we rent, we try to keep it at least like 20% of what our income is, right? So we try to keep our costs low. And, what's the best way I could describe it? I like the neighborhood, right? The neighborhood is great. It's not the neighborhood that I initially would have gone to, leaving Pennsylvania and coming back to Jersey. And we can get into that later on into the show. But this isn't a neighborhood that I ended up really growing. It's grown on me. Just leave it to you like that without trying to describe it too much. It's as diverse as I think it can be. It's diverse enough for my kids, I think, to feel comfortable. I think you could always be more diverse, but from that standpoint, the ratios, I think, are acceptable. It's a really good school system. For how much it's worth to be in this neighborhood, it's a really good school system, enough so that they don't have to go to private school. And anybody who's sending their kids to private school, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Them private school fees are expensive as hell. And, I never understood how someone can spend upwards of $10,000 or $15,000 on their children for school outside of high school until we had to do it for childcare, specifically for preschool and pre-K. The schools that our kids were in, they're in a normal, regular preschool, and they were ranging anywhere between like $1,400 to $1,500 a month. Right? That's crazy, right? So you multiply that by 12. That's crazy. That's like 15 G's, 16 G's, 17 G's. I'm not going to do the exact multiplication, but 10 times, 1,400 or 1,500, you're already at 14. And then you add two more of those, where it's at. And so, that being able to be in a school system where the school system is good enough where, listen, property taxes and the tax system provides a really good educational system that you don't have to pay for that. That's great. And then you throw on top of that, we're renting, and all we're doing is basically just paying rent. That's it. It was a great win for us. So the problem ended up being, in the back of my mind, there's two issues that I've ended up having is I knew we were getting a good rate with our rent, right? But I always knew that eventually somebody can pull the rug underneath us, whether that's increasing, jacking up our rent, or just saying, hey, we're selling this house. You guys are going to have to find someplace else. And the neighborhood that we live in is a small neighborhood. It's so small that it actually annexes what's the best way to describe it? You ever been to a school system where, it's actually two cities or two towns that have merged together? They're still separate, but they use the same high school or may use the same, middle school. That's the type of neighborhood that we live in. And we live in a small neighborhood that's attached to a larger neighborhood, but the school district is all shared between them. but the inventory for houses is really, really low in this area. So my big fear is, one, we have settled into this neighborhood. We like the people in this neighborhood. It checks so many different boxes. It's just that the inventory for houses is so low that I'm going to be really honest with you. Like, I just didn't want to buy a house. And that was my big thing. I didn't want to buy a house in this neighborhood because I felt like the houses are overpriced. Now, it's not just this neighborhood. It's wherever you go in Jersey. And I'm sure whoever's listening to this, you'll be like, yo, like in my neighborhood in West Bubble F, Michigan, or Iowa, or in Cali, or in Atlanta, like housing prices are straight through the roof. But someone who grew up in Jersey and left and then came back, and, you know, like I grew up in Jersey in the 90s, you know what I'm saying? And these houses are like $150,000, $200,000 houses that are now going for like $700,000, $800,000, right? All because of the neighborhoods that they're in, right? So we don't live too far from New York. So what we're finding is after COVID, so many people who were spending or used to spending like 3 stacks, 4 stacks for an apartment were like, okay, after COVID, I don't have to be going into New York all the time. Why don't I just take this money, go to Jersey, live right next to where a train line is, take the train in whenever I need to because I live right near a train line, and then use that money towards a house. Got a backyard. Got a school system that I don't have to put my kid into private school into. Jack the prices up, inventory goes down, and now these houses that are like, all right, maybe I'm exaggerating. They're not 200,000, but maybe they're like 350 or 400. They going for like 800. And when you walk into these houses, they need work, and not just like a paint job. Like, these are houses that are just regular one family starter family houses that are just crazy. And anybody who knows me knows that I still drive a Toyota Corolla. I'm gonna keep it to you like that. With what's the best way to describe it? No aspirations for anything more extravagant than that. I like that. I like the gas prices. I know I can always tell that I'm never gonna go over $30 to go from E to F. Let's just leave it to you like that. Even when gas prices are at $3, I'm never gonna go that high. The most I would probably go up to is maybe like a CRV, Honda CRV, because, you know, we need to be able to put, you know, we just need a little bit more room. I would say that at this point, we probably need a little bit more room, but that's all we need. And the Tesla went back, and as y'all know, like, that wasn't coming off personal funds. That was coming off, you know, business funds. Now, we used it only for business. I'm serious. We only used it for business, but like, for me, like, I don't really need much. So for me to spend $800,000 on a house that's like $300,000, that's a problem for me, right? Because that mortgage is going to change. That mortgage doesn't change, even though the values can fluctuate at times. Now, I don't know when the housing market is going to crash, quote unquote, or what's it going to do, but it just keeps rising and rising and rising. And that's the part that frustrates me. So overall, though, you know, we have a son that has a little bit of some special needs, not too much, but we feel like the school has like everything that he needs. So like, we want to be here for the next 5-10 years. Yeah, we want to be here for the next 5 or 10 years, maybe even longer. So we're dedicated to being in this community. And it just so happened while we're in Ghana, we got an email saying that, hey, yo, the landlord said, hey, yo, like, we are going to sell this house. And we just want to give you guys a heads up that you might start to see for sale signs. You might start to see inspectors come by. You might see everything that goes along with putting a house for sale. All of that stuff is going to be happening. And we want to let y'all know this is going to happen. And you throw on top of that, inventory's low. On top of that, I don't know what is going to happen with renting in this neighborhood. We decided to say, hey, let's throw our hat in the ring and go after this house. So I got a question for y'all. Like, before I even go into a further point, I want to know, people who are listening right now, I know most of the residents who are listening to this show, y'all are still renting, but to the attendings out there, to folks who are in different health professions, how many of y'all are still renting right now? How many of y'all plan to go into home ownership? So I'm 46. I've been practicing for over 12 years now. I had up until that email went out, like, I was like, look, how long can we ride this out? And there's always that discussion of like, okay, look, you're paying somebody else's rent, right? There's always that discussion. You're paying somebody else's rent. or you're paying somebody else's mortgage, excuse me. Your rent is paying someone else's mortgage. How long is that going to go on for? You're not building any equity in this. But we were using that money to invest, whether it was in a health savings account, whether it was in our college account for our kids, or even a brokerage account for us. And, we were always putting money away 3 to 5 years, and further than that for this type of situation. It's just that now that we've been saving so much and investing so much, it's like, man, do we really want to pop that cork? Do we want to take the seal off and use that? And the time has arisen, right? So this is an opportunity to possibly get this house without using a realtor. So it just kind of popped on us. But how many of y'all feel the pressure to buy? If you're renting right now, do you feel the pressure to purchase right now? Those who are in their house right now, do you look at it more like a house? Like, I don't care what happens to the market, this is our home, we're going to stay here. Or do you look at it like an investment property where it's like, if we don't get a certain amount of return, or we're going to be in this house for a finite period of time, like 3 years, 5 years, however long it may be. But after that, we expect a certain rate of return on this money, and we out. And when we out, we're doing a 1031 exchange. Long story short is we're going to sell this property, try to get another investment property, and not have to pay too much taxes on it. How many of y'all are in that situation versus this is our house? If the market is up, this is still our house. If the market is down, this is still our house. If the kids leave and they're no longer in public school, this is our house. How many of y'all are in that situation? Right? Are you cool with that if the value of your house goes stagnant? Are you cool with that? So these are the things that now I got to think about. Before I was like, look, here's my rent. We good. There's a problem in the house. Fix it. Thanks. We out. Comparing the cost of renting for 1 year or your first year versus renting or versus buying a house, right? So what's the cost of your first year in your house versus the cost of renting, right? So if you're buying a home, first year, right? And this is going to be in perpetuity as long as you own the home is property taxes, right? You're going to have to pay property taxes, closing costs, insurance, and maintenance. So let's take off something real quick. Actually, I have property taxes, down payment, closing costs, insurance, and maintenance. And then also your mortgage. Now, your insurance, your property taxes are going to be put into your mortgage. But in essence, your first year, once you get through that first year, you ain't got to worry about closing costs anymore. As a matter of fact, once you get through closing, that's just a one-time fee and that's it. So closing costs are going to be off after that first month. Insurance, that's, however long you're going, that's, homeowner's insurance or whatever type of insurance you're going to have. You may have that for a minute or you may have that for as long as you have the property. Maintenance, right? Just know that the roof is going to go sometime or the water heater. All of those things may go at some point. And then property taxes, which, speaking of such, in this neighborhood, they're thinking about increasing the property taxes because so many people have moved into this small neighborhood and is taxing the system so much that the classes are starting to become overrun, right? Like you're having class sizes of 25 and maybe even more. Like on the real, like my son's art class is on a cart. It doesn't have a classroom. Like they are like, it's mobile art class, right? Because there's not enough classrooms just for regular classes. So damn sure like music or gym or art is going to be on a cart. And so what they proposed is increasing property taxes so they can actually build a new school. And obviously, if you don't have a kid in the school system, and if you're older, you're like, well, why am I paying more for this possibly? And if you're someone like me and Renee, who are going to be using the school system for the next 10 years, we're like, yeah, man, like I don't want my kids' classrooms overrun. Raise the prices a little bit, And the thing that I have to think, like, it's just all these things that you just ain't got to think about, right? But my thought process is this. If the classes get overrun, if they get overcrowded, and then teachers start leaving, and then the quality of the education goes down, guess what else goes along with that when the prices go down, or when the quality of education goes down, right? Your house prices. So whether or not you have a kid in the school system or not, I think you have a stake in this game. So, whereas if I'm renting, look, the only thing that I got to worry about my first year is the security deposit and first month's rent. and insurance. And, insurance, depending on what you have in your house, is mad cheap, right? That's what we do. So you convert whatever your security deposit is, whatever rent is, and insurance, convert that for property taxes, insurance, maintenance, as well as a huge down payment. We're talking about like, something that could be like $9,000 versus $99,000, $100,000, maybe even more. So that's something that is a lot to think about. But in these high cost of living areas, it's something that you may be forced to do. If you live in a low cost of living area, if you live in the Midwest, which from what I'm hearing, the Midwest is really starting to go up in price, you may have a lot more time to kind of think about this. And as a matter of fact, there's a New York Times article that has been updated that properly delineates. We talked about this on a previous episode. It helps you to determine should you rent versus should you buy. I'll put that link in the show notes so you can take a look at that. But some questions that you guys should ask yourself before you buy is, I got my notes right here, is how long do you plan to be there? So we said we're going to be here at least 5 to 10 years, probably even longer. But if you are like 3 years or less, definitely if you're a resident and you're probably going to be going someplace else to do fellowship, or you just are here only because you matched in this spot, you probably should be renting. Same thing if you're in attending and you just got a job there, and you in your first year, second year, third year, you know me already. I'm just like, you never know. You may want to not buy that house yet. Just rent it out. See how things go for a little bit before you purchase, right? What is the state of the housing market in your local area? That's another thing that you need to check out, right? If it's not very competitive, then you might be able to, purchase something for yourself at a really good bid, at a really good cost. If it's really competitive, it speaks for itself. And then last but not least, I kind of mentioned this, and how long do you plan to stay there, is what about job security and satisfaction? If your job is very secure, if you're satisfied with your job, then you may want to consider purchasing. If you're not satisfied, if the job is not very secure, then come on now. You don't want the one thing that's holding you into a job that you can't stand. The worst reason why you want to go into a job and talk to people that you can't stand and have to deal with them for 10 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, depending on, what kind of... what kind of call you take is if, damn, I can't sell my house. I purchased this house. It's too expensive. Right? So I would say, think about those three things. How long do you plan to be in a neighborhood? What is the state of the housing market in your local area? And what about job security and satisfaction? But yeah, the Darkos, we purchasing a home. We're doing it, like I said earlier, without a real estate agent. So hopefully we'll save some costs there. But, we're doing the usual things. We're getting it inspected, and we're also we're getting our own real estate lawyer, and we're going to make it work. And we're going to make sure that we're doing this the smart way. But yeah, bro's a little scared about this. So wish us luck, and we'll keep you guys updated as to how this goes. So let us know what you think about these questions that I asked for you. Like, how many of y'all are still renting? Do you feel the pressure to buy? All those different things I'm really interested in. Put it in the YouTube comments or in Instagram or email. You know exactly how to let us know. All right.